If someone had told me that my life would change because of a burnt apple pie and a cell phone camera, I would have laughed, just like everyone else did that day at the Fellowship Hall of the Grace Community Church in Topeka, Kansas. But it wasn't a sweet laugh. It was that bitter kind of laughter, whispered behind hands, the kind that feels like it pierces your skin and squeezes your heart. That moment hit me like a wave, leaving me breathless and questioning everything I'd built my life around. If you've ever felt that raw ache of being dismissed by the people who should know you best, then you understand why I'm sharing this. Please, if my story resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join me for more like it, because we're in this together. The fog hung heavy over Topeka that April morning, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you want to curl up with a hot cup of tea instead of facing the world. But Wednesdays were sacred for the church ladies' brunch, a tradition I'd upheld for decades without fail. I'm Margaret Hayes, 62, a widow after losing my husband to a sudden heart attack 5 years ago, retired from my job as a school secretary. My days had blurred into a routine of gardening, knitting scarves for the grandkids, and baking treats for the neighbors, safe, predictable things that kept the loneliness at bay. Some nights I'd sit on the porch swing, the creak of the chains the only sound, staring at the empty chair beside me where Tom used to read the paper, and wonder if this quiet was all that was left for me. But that day I decided to shake things up. It started with my granddaughter Emma, 8 years old and full of that boundless energy kids have. She'd handed me her mom's old phone the weekend before, her eyes wide with excitement. "Grandma, you should start a baking channel. You're way better than those fancy TV chefs." She giggled, her pigtails bouncing as she demonstrated how to record a video. It was just a silly game to her, but for me, it planted a seed. After years of putting everyone else's needs first, my kids, my late husband, the community, I craved something that was mine alone. Deep down, I was tired of feeling like a background figure in my own life, always supporting, never shining. So I set up in my cozy kitchen with its faded yellow cabinets and the wooden tables scarred from countless family meals. The window overlooked the backyard where tulips were just starting to push through the soil, their green tips glistening with morning dew. I propped the phone against a stack of cookbooks, smoothed my apron, and hit record. Hello everyone, I'm Margaret Hayes, and today I'm sharing my grandmother's apple pie recipe, the one that got us through hard winters with nothing but a few bruised apples and a prayer. I peeled the fruit carefully, the knife slicing through the skin with a satisfying crunch, the sharp scent of fresh apples filling the air. But halfway through, the oven timer malfunctioned. I'd set it wrong in my nervousness. I forgot to check the crust, and by the time I pulled it out, the edges were charred black, the filling bubbling over like a volcano, smoke curling toward the ceiling. "Oh no," I muttered, chuckling at the disaster, though my cheeks flushed hot with embarrassment. Emma, who was watching from the doorway, burst into laughter. "Grandma, that's hilarious. Let's post it anyway. People love real stuff." She helped me edit it on the phone, adding a cheerful tune in the background, and titled it Grandma Margaret's Epic Apple Pie Fail, but we keep baking. I didn't think twice. It was just for fun. Little did I know that simple act would unravel the threads of my quiet life, forcing me to confront how much I'd hidden my own light to keep everyone else comfortable. At the brunch, the hall was alive with the chatter of women I'd known for years, tables draped in pastel cloths and laden with casseroles and fruit salads. The air smelled of percolated coffee and powdered sugar, mingled with the faint floral perfume of the older ladies. I set down my store-bought cookies, too embarrassed to bring the burnt pie, and took my seat. That's when the whisper started. "Did you see Margaret's video? Poor thing, trying to be one of those influencers at her age." Another voice chimed in. "It's sad, really. Since she lost Tom, she's been acting out." Their words floated across the table like smoke, impossible to ignore. My cheeks burned as I pretended to focus on my plate, forks scraping against the china. My son, David, 38, an accountant with a no-nonsense attitude, wasn't there, but I could imagine his reaction. "Mom, why draw attention to yourself like that? It's undignified." And my daughter, Laura, 35, always the perfectionist teacher, would add, "You're setting a bad example for Emma. What will her school friends think?" The laughter around me felt like needles, each one pricking deeper. I smiled through it, nodding at stories about grandkids and garden pests, but inside I was crumbling. Was I really so foolish for wanting a spark of joy? Had widowhood turned me into someone pitiable, someone who should just fade quietly into the background? As I drove home, the spring rain pattering on the windshield like gentle fingers tapping for attention, my phone buzzed incessantly. Notifications flooded in, likes, comments, shares. Heart racing, I pulled over and opened the app. "Grandma Margaret, you're adorable. That pie fail made my day. Reminds me of baking with my Nan. Keep going, lady. We need more real people like you. Subscribed. Can't wait for the next one." Tears blurred my vision as I read them in the dim light of the car. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not pitied. Emma squealed when I showed her later, jumping up and down in the living room. "See, Grandma, you're a star already." Her hug warmed me more than any blanket ever could. But joy is fleeting when doubt creeps in. That evening, David showed up at my door, his tie loosened after a long day, expression stern, the porch light casting shadows across his face. "Mom, what's this about a video? Laura called me freaking out." He stepped inside, glancing at the kitchen where the phone still sat on the counter, the faint smell of burnt crust lingering. "You're too old for this nonsense. What if clients at work see it? They'll think our family's a circus." His words landed like a slap, the kind that stings long after. I wanted to defend myself, to shout that I deserved this sliver of happiness, but old habits die hard. The years of smoothing over conflicts, of prioritizing peace over my own voice. I just nodded, murmuring, "It's nothing serious, dear," my hands twisting the dish towel nervously. He shook his head, pity in his eyes that hurt worse than anger. "Just delete it before it gets worse. You're embarrassing us." As he left, the door clicking shut like a final judgment, I sank into a chair, the weight of his judgment pressing down on my chest. Why did pursuing something for myself feel like a betrayal? That night, as I scrubbed the pie tin under hot water, steam rising like my suppressed anger, clouding the window, I whispered to my reflection, "Is it so wrong to want more?" From the living room, I heard the faint ping of another notification, a small beacon in the darkness. Maybe, just maybe, the world outside Topeka saw value in me that my own family couldn't, or wouldn't. The next morning brought more surprises. The video had hit 1,500 views overnight, the numbers climbing like vines on a trellis. Emma texted me excitedly, "Grandma, it's blowing up!" But not all feedback was kind. My neighbor, old Mr. Jenkins, yelled over the fence as I watered the flowers, his voice carrying on the crisp air. "Hey, baking queen, planning to char some muffins next?" And at the grocery store, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, a group of teens snickered in the cereal aisle, one pulling out their phone to film me discreetly. "Look, it's the fail, Grandma!" I hurried through the aisles, head down, cartwheels squeaking, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake, if this spark of rebellion was worth the fresh wave of shame. Then came a call from Pastor Ellis, his voice warm but laced with concern over the crackle of the line. "Margaret, some folks in the congregation mentioned your video. It's spirited, but perhaps it's drawing the wrong kind of attention for our group." Translation, fit in, don't stand out. His gentle tone made it sting more, like a loving reprimand. I nearly caved right then, fingers hovering over the delete button, my breath shallow as I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the curtains. But Emma burst through the door after school, backpack thumping to the floor, waving her tablet with flushed cheeks. "Read this, Grandma. A lady from Denver said your pie fail inspired her to try baking again after losing her husband. She feels less alone now." Her words shifted something in me, like a door creaking open to let in light. This wasn't just about my ego, it was connecting with others who felt invisible too, who carried their own quiet griefs. I decided to film another video, simple oatmeal cookies from my childhood, the kind my mother made on rainy days. As I mixed the dough, the scent of vanilla and oats filling the air, warm and comforting like an old quilt, I shared a memory of huddling by the stove during a Kansas storm, thunder rumbling outside, the warmth chasing away the chill, both literal and in our hearts. Life's full of fails, I said to the camera, my voice steadier now, but each one teaches us to rise again, just like dough with the right amount of time. Posting it felt like leaping off a cliff, my finger trembling on the upload button. Views climbed, 5,000, then 15,000, the notifications a steady hum. Comments poured in, your voice is so soothing, like a hug from home. Made these with my kids, thank you for the recipe. But Laura arrived that afternoon, storming in with a furrowed brow, the screen door slamming behind her. Mom, what are you thinking? Emma's classmates are teasing her about the crazy grandma video. Delete it now. Her tone was sharp, eyes flashing in the afternoon light slanting through the windows. Nobody wants to see an elderly woman flumbling in the kitchen. It's pathetic. I stood my ground, though my voice wavered, hands clasped tightly to hide the shake. Laura, it's bringing joy to people. Why can't you see that? She scoffed, arms crossing like a barrier. Joy? It's humiliation. Stop before you ruin our reputation. As she left, her footsteps heavy on the porch, I stared at my mother's recipe book on the counter, its pages yellowed and dog-eared, the binding cracked from years of love. Tucked inside was a faded photo of her in the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, smiling despite the hardships, her eyes crinkling with quiet strength. That's when inspiration struck, a series on family secrets hidden in recipes, little threads of resilience woven through generations. In the next video, I'd tease one, a handed-down spice blend that got us through lean times, its warmth a reminder that we always found a way. The anticipation built in the comments. Can't wait for the secret. You're my new favorite channel. But doubt lingered, a shadow in the corners of my mind. Had I invited more ridicule? Little did I know, this path would lead to revelations I never saw coming, forcing me to choose between the comfort of the familiar and the terrifying thrill of being truly known. Weeks passed, and the whispers in Topeka grew louder, echoing in the small aisles of the hardware store or the quiet hum of the library. At the post office, a clerk smirked behind the counter. Heard you're famous now, Margaret. Going to Hollywood next? Even at family dinner, the tension was palpable, the clink of silverware too loud in the silence. David carved the roast with precise strokes, muttering under his breath, Mom's little hobby is all anyone talks about. It's distracting from real life. Laura nodded, passing the potatoes without meeting my eyes. Exactly. Emma's grades are slipping because she's obsessed with helping you film. I bit my tongue, serving plates with trembling hands, the steam from the food rising like unspoken words. Inside, resentment brewed. Why couldn't they celebrate me, even a little? That night, alone in the glow of the computer screen, I almost quit, fingers poised over the app, heart heavy with the fear of losing what little harmony we had left. But flipping through my recipe book under the soft lamplight, I found an old entry, berry jam from summer '78, made with foraged fruit when money was tight. The handwriting, faded but familiar, sparked a video idea, sharing stories of resilience through food. I filmed it tearfully, the camera capturing the quiver in my voice as I recalled how that jam fed us during my husband's layoff, the sweet tart flavor on toast masking our worries, the jars lining the pantry like small victories. Posted at midnight, it exploded by morning, 50,000 views, the phone vibrating endlessly on the nightstand. Messages flooded. Your story gave me hope during my divorce. Baking this jam with my mom. Thank you. A young man from Chicago wrote, reminds me of my grandma's tales. Keep sharing. But local backlash intensified. At book club, under the warm glow of reading lamps, a woman sneered across the circle of chairs, "Margaret, influencer life suiting you? Careful, fame fades fast." Her words hung in the air, thick as the scent of chamomile tea. I forced a smile, fingers tightening around my mug. It's about connection, not fame. Inside, anger simmered, hot and unfamiliar. Then an email arrived, popping up with a soft ding, from a rep at Harvest Foods, a national brand. "Your authenticity resonates. Let's discuss a partnership." I dismissed it as spam at first, heart skipping nervously, but they followed up with a call, the ring cutting through the quiet afternoon. "We love your realness, Margaret. Propose a test video featuring our products. Payment, $4,500 per video, wired upon approval." I gaped, breath catching. "That's generous." She smiled genuinely. "Your story sells. Authenticity in a polished world." After hanging up, I danced around the kitchen, laughter bubbling out despite the tears. But Laura crossed her arms tighter. "Sounds too good to be true. What's the catch?" Her doubt deflated me like a punctured balloon, but I pressed on, clinging to that spark. The contract arrived via email, dated April 22, 2024, with clauses for authenticity and a non-disclosure, the words blurring slightly through my excited tears. I had a lawyer friend review it over coffee. "Legit," he said with a grin. Word spread fast through Topeka's grapevine. At the pharmacy, under harsh lights, a cashier whispered as she rang up my prescriptions, "Congrats on the deal, Margaret." But jealousy reared its head. David called that evening, voice dripping condescension over the line. "Mom, you're risking everything. What if it flops?" I hung up, tears stinging hot on my cheeks. Why did they fight my happiness so fiercely? Filming the first sponsored video was nerve-wracking, hands shaky as I measured ingredients under the phone's glare. I chose a berry cobbler, incorporating their flour, the dough sticky under my fingers. As I stirred, the scent rising sweet and promising, I shared, "This reminds me of summers picking berries to stretch the budget. $2 a pound back in '85, worth every prick from the thorns." Views soared, comments praising the blend of story and product, a chorus of encouragement. Harvest emailed, "Hit, more to come." But family strain deepened, a quiet ache growing. Laura confronted me in the kitchen one afternoon, sunlight harsh on her face. "You're changing, Mom. All this attention, it's making you selfish." Her words cut deep, like a knife through tender fruit. "We need you here, not chasing fame." I replied softly, voice thick. "I'm still here, but I deserve this too." She stormed out, leaving me questioning in the sudden silence if success was worth the rift, if reclaiming my voice meant losing theirs. As summer bloomed, flowers bursting in the yard, my channel hit 100,000 subscribers, a milestone that felt surreal. Invites poured in, local radio spots, a community fair booth where fans approached shyly for photos. But at home, silence reigned, heavy as humid air. David avoided visits, Laura sent curt texts. One evening, as fireflies blinked outside the window, Emma confided in a whisper, "Mom says your videos are silly, but I love them, Grandma." Her innocence broke my heart, a sharp twist. Was I tearing us apart, or finally stitching myself whole? Then a bigger opportunity landed. Harvest wanted a Christmas series. "Family-focused, real emotions," Sarah said warmly on the call. Panic set in. Expose our tensions on camera? The thought chilled me, but I agreed tentatively, hoping it might heal us, bridge the growing gap. But doubt nagged like a persistent chill. What if it backfired spectacularly, widening the cracks forever? Preparations for the Christmas campaign consumed me, filling quiet hours with planning. Scripts arrived, outlining family baking scenes that made my stomach knot. I invited David and Laura over to discuss, the house smelling of roasting turkey. Dinner was awkward, the bird dry from my distraction, conversations stilted. "This could be good for us," I ventured hesitantly, passing the gravy. David scoffed, fork pousing midair. "Good? It's exploitation. They'll twist our words for drama." Laura added sharply. I'm not faking happy for cameras, Mom. Their resistance hurt, a deep bruise, but I pushed gently, voice soft. It's a chance to show we're strong, together. Reluctantly, they agreed. For Emma's sake, they said, though their eyes said otherwise. The crew arrived December 10th, transforming my kitchen into a set. Bright lights humming, mics clipped, fake snow dusting the counters like a forced winter wonderland. Nerves jangled as we filmed, my hands cold despite the oven's heat. I made gingerbread, the spicy scent comforting, sharing a memory. Christmas '92, we had $50 for gifts, made these cookies instead, and they tasted like love. Emma piped in brightly, Grandma's the best. But tension boiled beneath the surface. During a break, coffee steaming in mugs, Laura muttered to David, low but audible, This is ridiculous. She's turning us into props. The mic caught it. The director paused, eyes lighting up. Real emotion is gold, he said encouragingly. I confronted them later in the hallway, voice hushed but firm. Why sabotage this? David sighed, shoulders slumping for the first time. Because you're leaving us behind, Mom, shining in a way we never got to. His vulnerability cracked my defenses, a glimpse of the hurt I'd unknowingly caused. The video aired Christmas Eve, raw and honest, no polished perfection. Views exploded, 2 million overnight. Comments flooded. Your family's realness is inspiring. Healed my own rift watching this. Thank you. Harvest offered an extension, $25,000 quarterly, a number that still made me dizzy. But true victory came Christmas morning, snow muffling the world outside. Laura hugged me tightly in the kitchen, her voice muffled. I was wrong, Mom. You're brave, so much braver than I ever gave you credit for. David nodded nearby, eyes soft. Proud of you, truly. We baked together that day, laughter filling the air like rising dough, hands dusted in flour, the scents of cinnamon and joy mingling. As snow fell softly beyond the window, blanketing Topeka in quiet white, I reflected that burnt pie sparked a fire I never knew I had, one that warmed not just me, but everyone around it. And now no one could extinguish it. If you faced doubt from loved ones, share in the comments what kept you going. And if my journey moved you, subscribe to the channel. There are more stories of triumph waiting. In the end, I stood taller, knowing age is no barrier to dreams.